I'm staring at the transcript on my computer screen, cursor blinking over the grade that will ruin everything, when my husband's hand slams down on my desk so hard my coffee jumps, splashing dark liquid across the papers I'd been reviewing. "Change it," Marcus hisses, his breath hot against my ear. "Now." I don't move. My fingers hover over the keyboard, trembling, but not from fear, not this time. In my previous life, the one that ended 6 months ago with my body broken at the bottom of a staircase in this very house and my reputation destroyed beyond repair, I changed it. I changed all of them. Every failing grade Vanessa earned through laziness and entitlement, I turned into an A. Every incomplete assignment, every plagiarized paper that should have gotten her expelled, every class she skipped to party or sleep off hangovers, I erased it all from existence. And it worked. God help me, it worked perfectly. She got into Thornfield Medical School, one of the top 5 most prestigious programs in the entire country, competing against thousands of genuinely brilliant students who had actually earned their perfect transcripts. She became Dr. Vanessa Hart, celebrated surgical resident, featured in magazine articles about the next generation of medical excellence, speaking at conferences about innovation in cardiothoracic surgery. And I became the criminal who got caught when a random audit exposed the fraud 3 years later. They never believed I'd been coerced. Why would they? Marcus made sure of that, hiding behind an army of expensive lawyers and carefully orchestrated tears, claiming he'd had no idea his troubled wife had been so obsessed with his daughter's success that she'd committed fraud. He painted me as unstable, jealous, desperate to prove my worth to a family that had graciously accepted me despite my humble origins. The prosecutors ate it up. The judge looked at me with disgust. The university terminated me immediately and pressed full criminal charges. I served 18 months in a minimum security facility before being released on parole. My career was destroyed. My reputation was in ruins. And when I finally came home thinking maybe, just maybe, Marcus would show me some small kindness after everything I'd sacrificed for his daughter, that's when he pushed me down the stairs. I remember the feeling of falling, my body hitting each step, the sharp crack of my skull against the hardwood floor at the bottom. I remember looking up and seeing Marcus standing at the top of the staircase, his face completely calm as he pulled out his phone to call 911. I remember him rehearsing his story even as I lay dying. "She was drinking again, officer. I tried to help her, tried to get her to stop, but she was unstable. She must have fallen. It's so tragic." I remember the darkness closing in, the cold spreading through my limbs, the desperate thought that I'd wasted my entire life on these people who had never, not for 1 second, cared if I lived or died, and then I woke up, 6 months in the past, in this same house in the guest bedroom where Marcus had banished me after yet another argument with morning light streaming through the curtains and the sound of Marcus's shower running in the master bathroom. My body was whole. My reputation was intact, at least as intact as it had been before everything fell apart, and I had 6 months of future knowledge burned into my brain like a brand. 6 months to change everything. 6 months to destroy them the way they destroyed me. But that was then. Right now, in this moment, Marcus's hand is still pressed against my desk and he's waiting for me to break the way I always break, to fold under pressure the way I always fold. I said change it. Marcus's voice drops lower, more dangerous, the tone he uses when he's deciding whether to escalate to violence. Vanessa needs at least a 3.8 GPA to stay competitive for Thornfield. That C in organic chemistry, too, is unacceptable. She earned that C, I say, keeping my voice steady, even though my heart is racing. She missed 14 out of 28 classes and scored a 52 on the final exam. The professor curved it up to a C out of mercy. "You're the assistant registrar at Westfield University." His fingers dig into my shoulder now, finding the exact spot where the bruise from last week's argument hasn't fully faded. The pain is sharp and immediate, designed to remind me of my place. "You have access to every student record in the system. You have the authority to make corrections. This is a correction." A correction to what? She failed because she didn't study. That's not an error. That's accurate reporting of her performance. The slap comes fast, his palm connecting with my left cheek with enough force to snap my head to the side. I taste blood where my teeth cut the inside of my mouth. But I was expecting it. I'd been slapped in my first life too, in almost exactly this scenario, almost exactly this way. Don't be stupid, Elizabeth. Marcus grabs my chin, forcing me to look at him. His eyes are cold, calculating, the eyes of a surgeon who's decided which parts of a patient need to be cut away. You know what happens if you disappoint me? Westfield might start wondering about you. They might start asking questions. They might look into your employment history more carefully. Those gaps you were so worried about when we met. The ones you begged me to never mention. The ones you lied about on your application. There it is, the leverage. The knife he's held to my throat since 2 months into our marriage. When I applied for the assistant registrar position at Westfield University 6 years ago, I'd been desperate. My mother had just died after a brutal 14-month battle with pancreatic cancer, a battle during which I'd been her sole caretaker. I'd taken a leave of absence from my previous job, then eventually resigned when it became clear she needed full-time care. For 14 months, I'd done nothing but manage her pain medications, take her to appointments, hold her hand while she vomited from chemotherapy, and watch her slowly waste away. After she died, I had nothing. No job, no savings. Medical bills had eaten through everything we had and then some. And a year-long gap in my employment history that I was terrified would make me look unreliable or uncommitted. So I lied. Not a big lie, not an elaborate scheme, just a small adjustment to the dates on my resume. I claimed I'd been doing freelance administrative consulting during that period, working remotely for various small businesses. It wasn't true. I'd been watching my mother die. But I was ashamed of the gap, afraid of the judgment, worried that no one would hire someone who'd given up on their career for family. The university never checked. Why would they? I had excellent references from my previous position, strong skills, and an interview that went perfectly. I got the job. I was grateful. I was good at it. And then I met Marcus at a hospital charity gala that Westfield helped sponsor. Dr. Marcus Hart, prominent cardiothoracic surgeon, widower, father to a college-age daughter. He was handsome, successful, charming. He pursued me with intensity, taking me to expensive restaurants, sending flowers to my office, introducing me to his colleagues as someone special. I was still grieving my mother. I was lonely. I was 37 years old and had spent the last decade caring for an ailing parent instead of building the kind of life other people my age had. Marriages, children, stability. Marcus seemed like a miracle, proof that it wasn't too late for me to have something good. We married 6 months after we met. Fast, probably too fast. But Marcus said he didn't want to waste time when he'd finally found the right person. I moved into his beautiful house in the suburbs, met his daughter Vanessa, who hated me on sight, and tried to build a life. 2 months later, Marcus sat me down in his study and told me he'd done a background check. He'd hired a private investigator to verify my employment history. He knew about the gap. He knew about the lie. "I'm not angry," he'd said, his voice perfectly calm. "I understand why you did it. You were in a difficult situation. But you need to understand something, Elizabeth. This information could destroy your career. If Westfield found out you lied on your application, they'd terminate you immediately. They might even press charges for fraud. All those student records you access, all that sensitive information you handle, they take honesty very seriously in that position." "Are you going to tell them?" I'd asked, my voice small. "Of course not, darling. I love you. I just want you to understand that we're a team now. When I ask you for help with something, when I need you to use your position at the university to support our family, I expect you to say yes. That's what marriage is about, supporting each other." I'd understood then, though I didn't want to admit it. The background check wasn't about due diligence, it was about control. He'd deliberately searched for leverage, for something he could use to make me compliant, and it had worked in my first life. For 3 years, every time I hesitated to falsify Vanessa's records, he'd remind me about the employment lie. Every time I tried to push back, he'd mention how easily he could destroy everything I'd built, and I'd believed him because he was right. The university would fire me if they knew. They'd possibly prosecute. I'd lose everything. So I'd change the grades. Over and over, semester after semester, I'd turned Vanessa's mediocre performance into excellence. And when the audit caught it 3 years later, Marcus had thrown me to the wolves without hesitation. But that was before. That was the old timeline, the one where I died at the bottom of the stairs. This time, I know exactly how this ends if I do what he wants. This time, I have a plan. Fine, I say quietly, letting my shoulders slump in defeat the way they always slumped in the first timeline. I'll change it. Marcus's expression shifts immediately to satisfaction. That smug smile that says he's won again, that I'm still his obedient little puppet. That's my girl. Vanessa's applying to Thornfield Medical School, early decision. The deadline is January 15th. I need her fall semester transcripts to be perfect when she submits them. I turn back to my computer, pulling up Vanessa's record in the student information system. Marcus watches over my shoulder, close enough that I can smell his expensive cologne mixing with the coffee I'd spilled. His presence is oppressive, controlling, making sure I do exactly what he wants. I navigate to Vanessa's current semester grades. Organic Chemistry 2 glares at me from the screen. A C, earned through a combination of poor attendance and worse performance. Her professor, Dr. Samantha Chen, had actually emailed me last week, not knowing I was Vanessa's stepmother, to express concern about whether Vanessa should continue in the pre-med track, given her obvious lack of interest in the material. My hand trembles, not from fear this time, but from rage I'm barely containing, as I click on the grade field. The system prompts me for authorization, verifying that I have the credentials to make changes to official academic records. I do. As assistant registrar, I have broad access to student data for legitimate administrative purposes. This isn't legitimate. This is fraud. But I enter my authorization code anyway and change the C to an A. Beautiful, Marcus murmurs, watching the grade update on the screen. Now the biochemistry grade. That B+ needs to be an A as well. Thornfield won't be impressed by B grades, even high ones. I change it. Then I pull up molecular biology, where Vanessa earned a B because she'd turned in a final project that was clearly purchased. From an online service, the writing style didn't match any of her previous work, and the references included sources that had been published after the paper's supposed completion date. The professor had docked her grade rather than reporting academic dishonesty, a kindness Vanessa never appreciated. I changed that B to an A. Then Marcus makes me adjust her attendance records, removing the flags from 3 classes where she'd exceeded the maximum absence limit. In one class, Advanced Physiology, she'd missed so many sessions that the professor had told her she couldn't pass regardless of her exam scores. I erased that entire conversation from the record, making it look like she'd been present and engaged the whole semester. By the time I'm done, Vanessa's transcript is flawless. A 3.94 GPA, no red flags, no disciplinary notes, no attendance problems. She looks like the perfect pre-med student, brilliant, dedicated, exactly the kind of candidate Thornfield Medical School wants. Print 3 copies, Marcus orders. Official university letterhead, your signature as the certifying registrar, the university seal. She needs them for the application package. I print them on the heavy cream-colored paper Westfield uses for official transcripts. Each page emerges from the printer with my name at the bottom, certified by Elizabeth Hart, Assistant Registrar, along with my signature and the university's official seal. They look perfect. They look legitimate. No one would ever question these documents. Marcus takes them carefully, holding them by the edges like they're precious artifacts. His satisfaction is evident in every line of his body. Excellent work, darling. I knew you'd see reason. Vanessa is going to be thrilled. I'm sure she will be, I say, my voice neutral. He kisses my forehead, a gesture of affection that makes my skin crawl. I'm going to drop these off with her tonight. She's finalizing her personal statement with the consultant we hired. Everything needs to be submitted by the deadline. He pauses at my office door. Oh, and Elizabeth, let's not mention this to anyone. The university has rules about family members accessing records. It's better if we keep this between us. Of course, I agree. He leaves, taking the fraudulent transcripts with him, and I sit alone in my home office, listening to the sound of his car pulling out of the driveway. Then I turn back to my computer and begin the real work. Because here's what Marcus doesn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, without my memories of the future. Thornfield Medical School implemented a new verification system this year. It went into effect on August 1st, 3 months ago, in response to a scandal at another prestigious university where dozens of applications had been found to contain falsified credentials. The new system is automated and comprehensive. Every transcript submitted with an early decision application and is cross-referenced with the originating institution's database. The verification happens in January, about 2 weeks before admissions decisions go out, giving the school time to address any discrepancies. In my previous timeline, this system didn't exist. Thornfield only started conducting random audits 3 years later, which is how my fraud was eventually discovered. But this time, with my knowledge of the future, I'd checked. I'd researched extensively. I'd read Thornfield's new admissions policies on their website, buried in a press release from July about their commitment to ensuring the integrity of the application process. I know exactly what's going to happen. Vanessa will submit her application with the fraudulent transcripts I just printed. The transcripts will be beautiful, flawless, perfect. And then in January, Thornfield's automated system will contact Westfield University for verification. And when they do, the only grades they'll find in the database are the real ones: the C in organic chemistry, the B+ in biochemistry, the B in molecular biology, all the attendance flags and warning notices. Because I'm not actually going to change anything in the university's official database. I'm going to give Marcus and Vanessa exactly what they want: perfect printed transcripts with my signature and the university seal. And then I'm going to make sure that when Thornfield's verification system checks with Westfield, the real grades are the only ones that exist. I spend the next 2 hours documenting everything. First, I take screenshots of Vanessa's real transcript as it exists in the database right now. Every grade, every flag, every note from concerned professors. I save these files to 3 different locations: my personal encrypted cloud storage, a flash drive that I'll keep with me at all times, and a secure email account Marcus doesn't know about. Then I create a detailed log of everything that just happened. I write down the date and time, transcribe Marcus's exact words as closely as I can remember them, describe the physical coercion, the hand on my shoulder, the slap, the bruise he deliberately aggravated. I note which grades I changed on the printed transcripts versus what remains in the database. I include screenshots showing the database values versus the printed document values. I write a careful narrative explaining that I was coerced by my husband, that I felt unsafe refusing, that I deliberately chose not to alter the university database because I knew what he was asking me to do was wrong and illegal. I explain that I'm documenting this for my own protection, in case this situation escalates or if I need evidence later. I don't submit this documentation anywhere. Not yet. But I need it ready for when everything comes crashing down. And it will come crashing down because I've seen the future and I know exactly how this plays out. I timestamp everything. I use a service that creates cryptographic proof of when a document was created, something that can't be backdated or altered. If anyone ever questions whether I knew about the fraud in advance, I'll have proof that I was documenting it in real time, trying to protect myself while feeling unable to refuse Marcus's demands. Finally, I write a letter to myself, a detailed explanation of my situation, my fears, my reasons for compliance. I describe Marcus's threatening behavior, the leverage he holds over me with the employment history lie, my fear that he'll become violent if I refuse. I print this letter, sign and date it, and put it in a sealed envelope that I hide in my office. It's not much. In my first life, I had nothing. No documentation, no evidence, no proof that I'd been coerced. It was my word against Marcus's, and he had money and lawyers and a reputation while I had only my guilt. This time, I'm building a paper trail. This time, I'll have evidence. When I'm finally done, it's after midnight. The house is quiet. Marcus is asleep in the master bedroom, probably dreaming about Vanessa's future success. I'm exhausted, my cheek still aching from the slap, my shoulder throbbing where his fingers dug in, but I'm also exhilarated. Because for the first time since I woke up in this second life, I'm not just reacting to Marcus's abuse. I'm actively working against him. I'm building the trap that will destroy him and Vanessa both, and they have no idea it's happening. I sleep in the guest bedroom, door locked, and dream of the look on Marcus's face when everything falls apart. The next 3 days pass in careful normalcy. I go to work at Westfield, processing graduation applications and helping students navigate registration problems. My coworkers have no idea that I've just committed document fraud at my husband's insistence. To them, I'm just Elizabeth, quiet and competent, always willing to help, never making waves. Janet from financial aid stops by my desk on Wednesday with coffee and gossip about the dean's upcoming retirement party. Did you hear he's going to announce his successor at the party? Everyone thinks it's going to be Dr. Reeves from the College of Sciences. That would make sense, I say, accepting the coffee gratefully. He's been here forever. 23 years, Janet confirms. God, I can't imagine working anywhere that long. Doesn't it get boring? In my first life, I worked at Westfield for 9 years total. 6 before everything fell apart, then 3 years in prison, then my death. In this life, I'm planning to be here for maybe 3 more months before I execute my exit strategy. But I can't tell Janet any of that. Stability has its advantages, I say instead. That evening, I come home to find Vanessa sitting at our dining room table, the 3 fraudulent transcripts spread out in front of her like holy relics. She's studying them intently, probably memorizing the grades so she can reference them confidently in interviews. These look good, she says without looking up at me, and she never looks at me if she can help it. To Vanessa, I'm furniture, an inconvenient obstacle in her relationship with her father. Dad said you were being difficult about it. I wanted to make sure they were accurate, I say carefully, which is technically true. I made sure the printed versions accurately reflected what Marcus wanted, even if they didn't reflect reality. They better be perfect. If I don't get into Thornfield, I'm going to be pissed. She finally glances at me, her eyes cold. She has Marcus's eyes, the same calculating assessment that sees people only in terms of their utility. You know how important this is. Dad's been planning for me to be a doctor since I was 10 years old. I'm not letting your incompetence ruin it. In my first life, I would have bristled at this. I would have pointed out that her grades were her own responsibility, that I'd already done far more than I should have, that calling me incompetent when I'd just committed fraud to help her was breathtakingly ungrateful. But that always made things worse. Vanessa would complain to Marcus, Marcus would punish me, and I'd end up apologizing for defending myself. I understand how important it is, I say instead, my voice neutral. Good luck with your application. Luck has nothing to do with it. Vanessa smiles, sharp and mean, the same smile her father wears when he's won an argument. I have perfect grades, extensive research experience, bought and paid for through her father's connections, outstanding letters of recommendation from professors Marcus wined and dined, and a surgeon father with connections at half the major hospitals in the region. I'm exactly what Thornfield is looking for. She's not wrong, exactly. On paper, with the fraudulent transcripts, she is an excellent candidate. The problem is that on paper is about to become a very important distinction. I'm sure they'll be impressed, I say. Vanessa gathers up the transcripts carefully, sliding them into a leather portfolio that probably cost more than my monthly salary. I'm submitting everything tomorrow. Dad's friend Dr. Levinson is on the admissions committee at Thornfield. He's promised to flag my application for special consideration. Of course he has. In my first timeline, that connection had been the final piece that got Vanessa accepted despite her mediocre actual qualifications. Thornfield was impressed by her surname, her father's reputation, and the fraudulent grades that suggested she was as brilliant as she was connected. That's wonderful, I say, because that's what she expects to hear. She leaves without another word, taking her false credentials with her, and I'm left standing in the dining room thinking about how satisfying this is going to be when it all comes apart. Vanessa submits her application on December 1st, the first day the early decision portal opens. Marcus calls me at work to tell me, his voice full of pride and anticipation, she's officially applied. Now we just wait for the good news. How long does the process take? I ask. Though I already know. I lived through this once before. Early decision notifications go out in mid-February. She should hear back by February 15th at the latest. His voice drops slightly. Elizabeth, I need you to make sure there are no problems on Westfield's end. If anyone from Thornfield calls to verify anything, you handle it personally. Make sure they only see what they're supposed to see. This is the moment where, in my first timeline, I'd agreed immediately, promising to intercept any verification requests and provide fraudulent confirmations. But that's not going to work this time because the verification isn't going to be a phone call I can intercept. It's going to be an automated system query that goes directly to Westfield's registrar database, completely bypassing me. Of course, I lie. I'll make sure everything goes smoothly. Good girl. This is going to change our lives, Elizabeth. When Vanessa gets into Thornfield, when she becomes a doctor, we'll be part of something extraordinary. You're helping create a medical career that will save lives. The irony is staggering. Marcus genuinely believes this narrative he's constructed, where Vanessa is a brilliant future physician who just needs a little help with the administrative details. He's convinced himself that the fraud is justified because Vanessa deserves success regardless of whether she earned it. I hope she gets everything she deserves, I say, and mean it in ways Marcus doesn't understand. December passes slowly after that. The holiday season arrives with all its forced cheer and obligation. Marcus's family comes for Christmas, his elderly mother, his 2 younger sisters, various cousins, and their children. They all treat me with polite distance, making it clear I'm an outsider who married into a family above my station. Vanessa holds court like a princess, accepting congratulations for her Thornfield application and holding forth about her future plans as Dr. Hart. I'm thinking about specializing in cardiothoracic surgery, she announces over Christmas dinner, shooting a meaningful look at her father. Following in Dad's footsteps, it would be wonderful to someday work together, maybe even start our own practice. Marcus beams. That would be incredible, sweetheart. Hart and Hart Cardiothoracic Associates. It has a nice ring to it. One of Marcus's sisters, Patricia, turns to me with a polite smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Elizabeth, dear, you must be so proud. What a wonderful family legacy. It's very exciting, I agree, serving mashed potatoes and playing the role of the supportive wife. Later, while I'm cleaning up in the kitchen, Patricia corners me. You know, Elizabeth, I have to say I'm impressed with how you've handled everything. It can't be easy being married to someone like Marcus. He's always been so focused on success, so demanding, and Vanessa can be challenging, but you seem to manage it all gracefully. It's the closest anyone in Marcus's family has ever come to acknowledging that my life isn't easy. I'm not sure if Patricia is being genuinely kind or subtly condescending, reminding me that I should be grateful to be part of this family despite the difficulties. Thank you, I say carefully. It's important to support family. Yes, but there's supporting family and then there's... She pauses, seeming to choose her words carefully. Just remember that you matter too, Elizabeth. Your needs, your happiness. Don't let yourself get lost. She leaves before I can respond, heading back to the dining room where Marcus is holding forth about a complex surgery he performed last week. I stand alone in the kitchen, hands deep in soapy dishwater, and wonder if Patricia knows something about her brother that she's trying to warn me about. Or maybe she's just noticed the same patterns I lived through in my first timeline. Marcus's controlling behavior, Vanessa's entitlement, the way they treat me like I exist solely to serve their ambitions. But it's too late for warnings. I'm already in the trap, already committed to seeing this through. The only question now is whether I'll escape or whether history will repeat itself. January arrives cold and gray. Westfield's spring semester begins on January 10th, and the registrar's office is swamped with students needing schedule adjustments, missing prerequisites, and general administrative chaos. I throw myself into the work, grateful for the distraction. The call comes on January 8th, 2 days before classes resume. I'm at my desk processing a stack of grade appeals from fall semester when my office phone rings. The caller ID shows an unfamiliar number with a Massachusetts area code. Something in my chest tightens with recognition, even though this is technically the first time I'm receiving this call. Westfield University Registrar's Office, Elizabeth Hart speaking. Ms. Hart, this is Jennifer Morrison from Thornfield Medical School's admissions office. I'm calling regarding a transcript verification for one of your students. My heart is pounding so hard, I'm certain she can hear it through the phone. This is it. This is the moment everything starts to unravel. Yes, of course. How can I help you? We're verifying documents submitted with an early decision application for a student named Vanessa Hart. Our automated system has flagged some discrepancies between the transcripts submitted with her application and the grades currently showing in your university database. I see. What kind of discrepancies? Jennifer's voice is professional, but I can hear the underlying tension. Significant ones. According to the transcript submitted to us, Ms. Hart earned an A in Organic Chemistry 2 in fall of last year. However, our verification system shows that course recorded as a C in your database. Similarly, biochemistry shows as an A on the submitted transcript, but a B+ in your system. There are several other discrepancies as well, including attendance records and academic standing flags. I pull up Vanessa's file on my computer, though I already know exactly what it contains. The real grades, unchanged from when I documented everything back in November. Let me verify what we have in our system. Can you tell me which specific courses are showing discrepancies? She lists them all. Every grade I changed on the printed transcripts, every attendance flag I removed, every warning notice I erased. The discrepancies are comprehensive and damning. I'm looking at our database now, as I say, my voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding my system. The grades in our system are Organic Chemistry 2, C, Biochemistry, B, Molecular Biology. Basse. There are also attendance flags for 3 courses and a note from her academic advisor expressing concern about her commitment to the pre-med track. That matches what our verification system is showing. Jennifer pauses. Ms. Hart, I need to see the transcript that was submitted to us. I'm going to email you a scanned copy right now. Can you check your email and confirm what you're seeing? My email pings with the incoming message. I open it and there it is. The beautiful, fraudulent transcript I created in November. Perfect grades, no flags, no problems. And at the bottom, my signature. Certified by Elizabeth Hart, Assistant Registrar, Westfield University. I've received it, I confirm. That document bears your signature and Westfield University's official seal. Can you confirm that you created and signed this transcript? This is the pivot point, the moment where everything changes. In my first timeline, I panicked at this question. I tried to lie, tried to claim I didn't recognize it, tried to suggest it might have been forged. But the lies had fallen apart quickly under investigation, and I'd ended up looking guilty, deceptive, and solely responsible. This time, I'm ready. Ms. Morrison, I'm going to be completely honest with you because this situation is extremely serious and I believe you need to know the full truth. I take a deep breath, steadying myself. Yes, I created and signed that transcript. However, I did so under coercion from my husband, who is Vanessa Hart's father. The silence on the other end is absolute. I need to be very clear about what happened, I continue, my voice shaking slightly, not entirely an act because even though I've prepared for this moment, it's still terrifying to actually say these words out loud. My husband, Dr. Marcus Hart, discovered that I had a discrepancy in my own employment history, something I lied about on my application to Westfield several years ago. He's been using that information as leverage to force me to falsify his daughter's academic records. In November, he physically coerced me into creating those fraudulent transcripts for Vanessa's Thornfield application. Ms. Hart, please let me finish. I need to tell you everything. My hands are gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles are white. I knew what he was asking me to do was wrong and illegal, but I was afraid of him. He's been physically and emotionally abusive throughout our marriage, and I was afraid of what he would do if I refused. So I created the false transcripts for the printed documents, but I deliberately did not alter the university's official database. I also documented everything that happened. I have encrypted files, time-stamped logs, and written documentation of the coercion, including threats my husband made and descriptions of the physical abuse. I was planning to come forward eventually, but I was terrified of the consequences. The silence stretches out for what feels like an eternity. When Jennifer finally speaks, her voice is careful, measured. Ms. Hart, these are extremely serious allegations. Are you saying you were forced to commit fraud under threat of violence and exposure? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And you have documentation of this coercion? Extensive documentation. I have encrypted files showing the original grades, logs of when I created the fraudulent transcripts, screenshots proving the database was never altered, and written accounts of the threats and physical abuse. Everything is timestamped and backed up to multiple secure locations. Another pause. Ms. Hart, I need to ask you directly, are you in danger right now? The question catches me off guard, even though I should have expected it. I'm at work right now. I'm safe here. But I haven't told my husband about this call. He doesn't know that Thornfield has contacted me. Do you have somewhere safe you can go? Someone you can stay with? I've made arrangements, I say, which is true. I have a hotel reservation booked under my maiden name, paid for with a credit card Marcus doesn't know about. I've been planning my escape for months, waiting for this exact moment. I'm not going home tonight. Good, Ms. Hart, I need to tell you that we're going to have to report this to Westfield's administration and very likely to law enforcement. Document fraud at this level, especially involving coercion and domestic violence, requires a formal investigation. Do you understand what that means? Yes, I'm willing to cooperate fully with any investigation. I want the truth to come out. I've been living under my husband's control for too long. All right, I need you to not alter any files or documents. Leave everything exactly as it is right now. Someone from Thornfield will be contacting Westfield's administration within the hour, and they'll likely want to speak with you directly. I'm also going to provide you with a contact number for a domestic violence advocacy organization. They can help you navigate what's coming. Thank you, I say, and mean it. Jennifer Morrison has no idea that she's playing a role in my carefully orchestrated plan, but I'm genuinely grateful for her professionalism and compassion. Ms. Hart, Elizabeth? Her voice softens slightly. What you're doing right now, telling the truth, coming forward, that takes tremendous courage. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you're doing the right thing. I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the strategic thing, the thing that will save me and destroy Marcus and Vanessa. But maybe that's the same thing. Maybe survival is its own form of righteousness. Thank you, I say again. I appreciate that. We end the call and I sit at my desk, hands shaking, staring at my computer screen. The countdown has begun. Within the hour, Thornfield will contact Westfield's administration. Within a few hours, I'll be called into an emergency meeting. By tonight, everyone will know that Vanessa Hart's perfect application was built on fraud and that her stepmother was the one who exposed it. I have maybe 60 minutes before everything explodes. I use that time productively. First, I forward copies of all my documentation to my personal email, creating redundant backups. Then I send a carefully worded email to Patricia Rodriguez, Westfield's University Counsel, with the subject line, "Urgent," regarding transcript fraud and personal safety concerns. In the email, I explain that I'm expecting contact from Thornfield Medical School about a transcript verification issue, and that I need to speak with her immediately about matters involving coercion and domestic safety. I include a brief summary of the situation, just enough to make clear that this is serious and urgent, but saving the details for a face-to-face conversation. Then I call the hotel where I have a reservation and confirm that my room will be ready this afternoon. I pack a small bag, just essentials, clothes for a few days, my laptop, the flash drive with all the evidence, and hide it in the trunk of my car. Finally, I call the domestic violence hotline Jennifer Morrison recommended and explain my situation to the counselor who answers. She connects me with a local attorney who specializes in domestic abuse cases. The attorney, a woman named Susan Chen, agrees to meet with me tomorrow morning. Document everything, Susan tells me over the phone. Every threatening text message, every bruise, every instance of coercion. And stay somewhere safe tonight. Don't go home under any circumstances. I won't, I promise. 43 minutes after Jennifer Morrison's call, my office phone rings again. This time it's Dean Reeves's assistant, asking me to come to the administration building immediately for an emergency meeting. I'll be right there, I say. I gather my documentation, printed copies of everything plus the flash drive, and walk across campus to the administration building. It's a cold January day, the kind where your breath comes out in clouds and the wind cuts through your coat. Students are starting to arrive. back on campus for the spring semester, dragging suitcases and looking excited or apprehensive about the coming term. None of them know that in a few weeks this campus will be the center of a scandal that makes national news. None of them know that the quiet woman walking past them right now is about to blow up her own life in the most spectacular way possible. The meeting is held in Dean Reeves's conference room, a wood-paneled space with a long mahogany table and portraits of past university presidents on the walls. Already present when I arrive are Dean Reeves himself, Patricia Rodriguez, the university counsel, Dr. Jennifer Morrison from Thornfield, joining via video conference, and two people I don't recognize but who introduce themselves as investigators from the university's Office of Academic Integrity. Everyone looks grim. "Ms. Hart, please sit down," Dean Reeves says, gesturing to a chair. His expression is stern but not unkind. "We've received a very concerning report from Thornfield Medical School regarding discrepancies in a student transcript. Before we proceed, I want to remind you that you have the right to have an attorney present for this conversation." "I understand," I say, "but I'm willing to talk to you without an attorney present. I want to cooperate fully." I pull out my flash drive and set it on the table. And I have extensive documentation of what happened. Over the next 3 hours, I tell them everything. I walk them through my employment history lie, Marcus's discovery of it, the way he's used it as leverage throughout our marriage. I describe the coercion in November, his demands that I falsify Vanessa's transcripts, the threats about exposing my lie to the university, the physical violence when I initially resisted. I show them the screenshots proving that Westfield's database was never altered, only the printed transcripts. I show them the time-stamped logs documenting every change I made to the printed documents. I show them my written accounts of Marcus's threatening behavior, descriptions of the abuse, photographs of bruises. The investigators take notes constantly. Patricia Rodriguez asks sharp, pointed questions about timelines and specific incidents. Dr. Morrison, watching via video, looks progressively more horrified as the full scope of the situation becomes clear. "Why didn't you come forward immediately?" Patricia asks at one point. "When your husband first started threatening you, why didn't you report it to the university or to the police?" It's the question I've been expecting, the one I've rehearsed. "I was afraid," I say simply. "My husband is a prominent surgeon with money and connections. I'm nobody, just an administrative employee with a lie in my employment history. Who would believe me? I thought if I documented everything and made sure the real grades stayed in the database, at least there would be evidence if things fell apart. But I didn't think I could go to the authorities and expect them to take my side over his." "You were being abused," one of the investigators says, her voice gentler. "That's not rational decision-making. That's survival." I know that now, but at the time I just felt trapped. Dean Reeves leans back in his chair looking troubled. "Ms. Hart, you do understand that you technically committed fraud by creating and signing those false transcripts, even under duress?" "Yes, I understand that." "The university will need to conduct a full investigation. You'll be placed on administrative leave with pay while we determine the appropriate course of action. However, I want to be clear that the fact you documented everything and didn't alter the database works significantly in your favor." Patricia Rodriguez adds, "We'll also need to report this to the police. The allegations of coercion, domestic violence, and conspiracy to commit fraud require a criminal investigation. I strongly recommend you retain legal counsel immediately." "I've already made arrangements to speak with an attorney tomorrow," I tell her. "Good," she makes a note. "In the meantime, do you have somewhere safe to stay? You mentioned you weren't planning to go home." "I have a hotel reservation." "All right, we'll be in contact with you tomorrow to schedule follow-up interviews. For now, please go to the hotel, stay safe, and don't have any contact with your husband or stepdaughter." I agree to everything. They dismiss me with instructions to turn in my university access credentials temporarily, my ID badge, my computer login, my keys to the registrar's office. I hand everything over, feeling a strange sense of relief. I'm no longer complicit. I'm no longer hiding. Everything is out in the open now. I drive to the hotel, check in under my maiden name, Elizabeth Morrison, the name I plan to reclaim, and collapse on the bed. My phone has been buzzing constantly with calls from Marcus, but I've been ignoring them. Now I turn it off completely and just lie there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of 3 years of fear and rage, and planning finally lifting off my shoulders. I did it. I actually did it. I set the trap and they walked right into it, and now the consequences are coming like a freight train. I sleep better that night than I have in years. The next morning, I meet with Susan Chen, the domestic violence attorney. She's a small woman, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Her office is comfortable but professional, decorated with certificates and awards for her work with abuse survivors. "Tell me everything," she says, and I do. It takes 2 hours. She takes extensive notes, asks clarifying questions, reviews all my documentation. When I finish, she sits back and looks at me with an expression I can't quite read. "You were being strategic," she says. "You documented the abuse not just for evidence, but because you were planning for this moment." "Yes," I admit. "I knew it. Couldn't go on forever. I knew eventually something would break. I wanted to make sure I had proof when it did." That's actually very smart. Most abuse victims don't think that clearly. They're too focused on immediate survival to plan for the long term. The fact that you did suggest either remarkable foresight or, she pauses, or you've been through something like this before. The comment startles me because it's closer to the truth than she knows. I have been through this before in my first life. I know exactly how it feels to be caught in fraud without evidence of coercion. I know what it's like to face criminal charges alone. I know what it's like to be destroyed by Marcus and Vanessa and have no one believe me. Let's just say I've learned to be careful, I say carefully. Susan nods, accepting this non-answer. All right, here's what's going to happen. The police will want to interview you. They may press charges against your husband for coercion, conspiracy to commit fraud, and domestic violence. Vanessa may also face charges, depending on how much she knew about the fraud. The university will complete its internal investigation, but based on what you've told me and the documentation you have, I'm cautiously optimistic that you won't face criminal charges yourself. The coercion defense is strong, especially with your evidence. What about my job? That's harder to predict. You did technically commit fraud, even under duress. The university might decide to terminate you, or they might decide that the extenuating circumstances warrant leniency. A lot will depend on how the investigation proceeds and whether they believe your account. I understand. In the meantime, I'm going to file for an emergency restraining order against your husband. Based on your documentation of physical abuse and threats, I'm confident we can get it approved. That will legally prevent him from contacting you or coming near you. Thank you, I say, feeling another wave of relief. Over the next several days, everything unfolds in a careful choreography of investigations and legal proceedings. The police interview me 3 times, going over every detail of Marcus's coercion and abuse. They seize his phone and computer, finding the text messages he thought he'd deleted. Messages where he explicitly threatened to expose my employment history lie if I didn't cooperate with the fraud. They also find messages between Marcus and Vanessa discussing the transcript situation. The messages are damning. Marcus to Vanessa: "Elizabeth finally agreed to fix your grades. She was being difficult, but I handled it." Vanessa to Marcus: "Good. I can't believe she was going to let my bad grades ruin everything. It's not like it even matters. I'm going to be a great doctor regardless of what some stupid test scores say." Marcus to Vanessa: "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll make sure everything is perfect for your application." The messages prove beyond doubt that both Marcus and Vanessa knew the transcripts were fraudulent, that they actively participated in coercing me, and that they felt entirely justified in doing so. The restraining order is granted on January 12th. Marcus is ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from me and to have no direct or indirect contact. According to Susan, he tried to argue against it in court, claiming I was making false accusations to cover my own guilt, but the judge took one look at the photographs of my bruises and the text messages and granted the order immediately. Westfield's investigation concludes on January 20th. Patricia Rodriguez calls me with the results. "The university has decided not to terminate your employment or press charges," she tells me. "However, you're being permanently reassigned to a position that doesn't involve access to student academic records. You'll be working in alumni relations, helping coordinate events and fundraising. It's a lateral transfer, same pay grade, same benefits, but very different responsibilities. I understand, I say, though I'm secretly relieved. I'd been prepared for much worse. Additionally, regarding your employment history discrepancy, the one your husband used as leverage, the university is formally acknowledging that you were transparent about your mother's illness when directly asked during your initial interviews, even though your resume dates were incorrect. Given the circumstances and given that you've been an exemplary employee for 6 years, we're issuing a formal correction to your personnel file rather than considering it grounds for termination. Thank you, I say, surprised by this unexpected grace. Don't thank me yet. You're still going to be testifying in criminal proceedings, potentially for months. This is going to be very public and very ugly. The media has already started picking up the story. She's right. The first article appears online that afternoon. Prominent surgeon's daughter caught in transcript fraud scandal. By the next morning, it's gone regional. Medical school application fraud linked to Westfield University. Within a week, it's national news. The dark side of medical school admissions, how one family's desperation led to fraud. Marcus tries to control the narrative, giving interviews where he claims shock and betrayal, insisting he had no idea I was falsifying records. My wife has struggled with mental health issues for years, he tells CNN, his voice trembling with manufactured emotion. I had no idea she was so obsessed with Vanessa's success that she would commit fraud. I feel terrible for not recognizing the signs earlier. But then the police release the text messages. News outlets get hold of them. I have no idea how, but I'm grateful. And suddenly everyone can see Marcus explicitly threatening me, Vanessa bragging about manipulating me, both of them callously discussing the fraud like it was a minor administrative detail rather than a serious crime. Public opinion turns sharply. Within days, there are think pieces about coercive control in relationships, about how domestic abuse victims are often forced to participate in their abusers' crimes. Feminist blogs write about the gendered dynamics of my situation. A powerful male surgeon coercing his lower status wife, an entitled daughter treating her stepmother like hired help. Marcus loses his position as chief of cardiothoracic surgery at his hospital. The hospital administration puts out a statement about not tolerating unethical behavior from their staff. His surgical practice suffers as patients request new doctors, uncomfortable being treated by someone facing criminal charges. Vanessa's life implodes even more dramatically. Thornfield Medical School not only rejects her application, but reports the fraud to AMCAS, the American Medical College Application Service that processes all medical school applications in the country. She's permanently flagged in their system. Every medical school in the United States now knows she submitted fraudulent credentials. Her dream of becoming a doctor is over before it even began. She tries to do damage control, claiming she didn't know the transcripts were false, that her father handled all the application materials without telling her the details. But those text messages destroy that defense. Everyone can see her bragging about fixing her grades, joking about how easy it was to manipulate me. Her friends from Westfield start avoiding her. Her social media accounts get flooded with angry comments. Someone creates a meme based on her text messages. I'm going to be a great doctor, regardless of what some stupid test scores say. That goes viral. She becomes a symbol of entitled mediocrity, the poster child for everything wrong with privileged students who think rules don't apply to them. Meanwhile, I'm living in my hotel room, watching it all unfold like a spectator to my own life. I give interviews to a few carefully selected journalists telling my story of coercion and abuse. I'm portrayed sympathetically in most coverage. The victim who was forced to commit fraud, the abuse survivor who finally found the courage to come forward. It's strange being a public figure in this way. People recognize me now when I go to the grocery store or the coffee shop. Some of them are supportive, telling me I'm brave, expressing admiration for speaking out. Others are judgmental, suggesting I should have refused Marcus's demands from the beginning, that a truly moral person would have accepted the consequences rather than participating in fraud. I don't engage with either group. I just keep my head down, work with Susan Chen to prepare for the criminal trial, and try to build some semblance of a normal life. The criminal trial begins in June, 6 months after that first phone call from Thornfield. The proceedings take place in the county courthouse, an imposing stone building that's seen decades of human drama play out in its courtrooms. Marcus is facing multiple charges: coercion, conspiracy to commit fraud, domestic violence, obstruction of justice for deleting text messages, and witness intimidation for continued attempts to contact me despite the restraining order. His legal team is expensive and aggressive, but they're fighting an uphill battle against overwhelming evidence. Vanessa is facing charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, making false statements to a federal institution. Thornfield receives federal research funding, which apparently escalates the charges, and obstruction of justice. Her lawyer tries to paint her as a naive young woman manipulated by her overbearing father, but the prosecution destroys that narrative by presenting her text messages, her social media posts, and testimony from Westfield professors who describe her entitled attitude and poor work ethic. I'm the prosecution's star witness. I testify for 3 days straight, walking through every detail of Marcus's abuse and coercion. The defense attorneys try to destroy my credibility, bringing up my employment history, lie repeatedly. Isn't it true, Ms. Hart, that you lied on your application to Westfield University? Marcus's lawyer, a sharp-featured man named Richard Brennan, demands during cross-examination. Yes, I lied about the dates on my resume to cover a gap when I was caring for my dying mother, I reply calmly. I've been prepared for this question. So, you have a history of dishonesty? I made a mistake out of desperation and grief. I've acknowledged that mistake and taken responsibility for it, but that doesn't change the fact that your client used my mistake as leverage to force me to commit fraud on his behalf. Or perhaps you committed fraud voluntarily and are now claiming coercion to avoid responsibility? If I had committed fraud voluntarily, why would I have documented everything so carefully? Why would I have deliberately not altered the university database? Why would I have encrypted files proving the fraud if I wasn't trying to protect myself from exactly this kind of accusation? Brennan doesn't have a good answer to that. The documentation I created is too comprehensive, too clearly designed to preserve evidence to support his theory that I acted voluntarily and am lying about the coercion. The prosecution presents the text messages, the photographs of bruises, my written accounts of abuse, testimony from Westfield staff who noticed signs of domestic violence, and expert testimony from a psychologist about coercive control in relationships. They present evidence from my phone records showing Marcus's attempts to contact me despite the restraining order, attempts that included using Vanessa's phone, calling from blocked numbers, and even having one of his hospital colleagues call me on his behalf. The most damaging testimony comes from Vanessa herself. Against her lawyer's advice, she insists on testifying, apparently, believing she can charm the jury into sympathy. Instead, she comes across as entitled, defensive, and completely lacking in remorse. I worked hard in college, she insists under questioning from her own lawyer. I was pursuing a demanding pre-med curriculum while also maintaining an active social life and participating in research. Sometimes my grades suffered because I had other priorities, but that doesn't mean I wasn't capable of being a doctor. So you believed you deserved to be accepted to medical school despite failing grades? The prosecutor asks during cross-examination. They weren't failing grades, they were just lower than ideal. Ms. Hart, you earned a C in organic chemistry too, a foundational course for any medical student. Do you consider that adequate preparation for medical school? The grade doesn't reflect my actual understanding of the material. The professor had unreasonable attendance policies and the exams were poorly written. So everyone else who passed the class was just lucky? Or perhaps they attended class and studied? Vanessa's face flushes with anger. You don't understand what it's like. The pressure to be perfect, to live up to everyone's expectations. My father has been planning my medical career since I was a child. Sometimes you need help to achieve your potential. Help in this case meaning fraud? I didn't think of it that way. I just thought of it as my stepmother doing what family is supposed to do, supporting each other. The prosecutor lets that hang in the air for a moment. Supporting each other by committing felony fraud? Vanessa's lawyer objects, but the damage is done. The jury has seen her entitlement, her lack of accountability, her fundamental belief that she deserves success regardless of whether she earns it. The trial lasts 3 weeks. The jury deliberates for just over 2 days. Marcus is convicted on all 5 counts: coercion, conspiracy to commit fraud, domestic violence, obstruction of justice, and witness intimidation. The judge sentences him to 6 years in federal prison. His medical license is permanently revoked. His reputation is destroyed. Vanessa is convicted of conspiracy to commit fraud and making false statements to a federal institution. Because she's a first-time offender and slightly more sympathetic than Marcus, though not by much, she gets a lighter sentence: 2 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and a permanent flag in the AMKAS system. She'll never be a doctor, but she avoids prison. As for me, the prosecution declines to file charges. The judge makes a formal statement during sentencing that while I technically committed fraud, the evidence clearly shows I was coerced and that I took steps to document the crime and preserve evidence of the true grades. My actions, the judge says, demonstrate that I knew the conduct was wrong, but felt unable to refuse due to legitimate fear of violence and professional destruction. It's over. After 6 months of investigations, interviews, testimony, and media scrutiny, it's finally over. I walk out of that courthouse into bright summer sunshine, free and vindicated, and I let myself cry for the first time since this whole ordeal began. The months after the trial are strange. I moved to Vermont, to a small college town called Burlington, where nobody knows my name or my history. I take a job at Champlain College as an associate director of student services, working with students who are struggling academically or personally. It's good work, fulfilling in ways my previous job never was. I changed my name legally back to my maiden name, Elizabeth Morrison, not Elizabeth Hart. I find a therapist who specializes in trauma from domestic abuse and coercive control. She helps me understand that what Marcus did wasn't my fault, that I was a victim long before I became a survivor, that my strategic documentation of the abuse doesn't make me manipulative. It makes me smart. You recognized a dangerous situation and you made a plan to survive it, she tells me during one session. That's not manipulation, that's self-preservation. But I let it happen, I argue. I could have refused from the beginning. I could have gone to the police the first time he hit me. Instead, I participated in the fraud. You participated under duress with a clear plan to document the truth and ensure it eventually came out. Yes, you made choices, but they were choices made under conditions of fear and control. Give yourself credit for surviving and for making sure the truth was revealed. It takes time, but slowly I start to believe her. I adopt a cat, a gray tabby I name Pepper. I rent a small apartment with a view of Lake Champlain. I make friends with my coworkers and neighbors, people who know me only as Elizabeth Morrison, the helpful woman from student services who always has good advice and a sympathetic ear. 2 years after the trial, I get an email from Jennifer Morrison, the Thornfield admissions officer who first called me about the transcript verification. Dear Ms. Morrison, it reads, I wanted to reach out and thank you for your courage in coming forward about the fraud. Because of your actions, Thornfield has implemented even more robust verification procedures that have caught numerous cases of falsified applications. You quite literally saved our institution from admitting students who had no business being here, and probably prevented future patients from receiving substandard care from doctors who couldn't cut it academically. More importantly, you saved yourself from a dangerous situation. I hope you're doing well and that life is treating you kindly. If you're ever in the Boston area, I'd love to take you to coffee. I stare at the email for a long time, feeling something I haven't felt in years. Proud. Proud of myself, proud of what I did, proud of surviving and escaping and telling the truth. I write back, Banish, thank you, I'd like that very much. I'm doing well, better than I've been in a long time. Your call that day in January changed my life, and I'm grateful for your professionalism and compassion. We do eventually meet for coffee, almost a year later when I'm in Boston for a conference. Jennifer is warm and intelligent, and we spend 2 hours talking about higher education, admissions integrity, and the challenges of identifying fraud in application materials. We don't talk much about Marcus or Vanessa. That chapter is closed for both of us. We're focused on the future, on preventing similar situations, on making systems better. 3 years after the trial, I'm settled into my life in Burlington. I have a good job, good friends, a therapist I trust, and a cat who purrs on my lap while I read. I'm happy in a way I never thought I'd be again. That summer, I'm at a coffee shop working on some reports when I see a familiar face. It takes me a moment to place her, one of Vanessa's friends from Westfield, a girl named Ashley, who used to sneer at me when I showed up at Marcus's country club events. She doesn't recognize me at first. I've changed significantly. Different hair, different style, different posture. I no longer carry myself like someone who expects to be hit. But then our eyes meet and I see the recognition, followed by something unexpected. Respect. "Elizabeth?" she says hesitantly, approaching my table. "Elizabeth Morrison?" "That's me," I confirm. I just wanted to say what you did was really brave. The way you stood up to Dr. Hart and Vanessa. A lot of us were talking about it after the trial. You took on someone with money and power and you won. I don't know how to respond to that. In my mind, I'm not particularly brave. I'm just someone who got a second chance, though she doesn't know about that part, and refused to waste it. "Thank you," I finally say. "That means a lot." "Vanessa's not doing well," Ashley continues, seeming to need to tell me this. "She's working in pharmaceutical sales, making okay money, but she's bitter about everything. She tells everyone that you ruined her life, that she would have been a great doctor if you hadn't betrayed her. But honestly, most of us stopped talking to her after the trial. The entitlement, the lack of accountability, it was too much." "What about Marcus?" I ask, though I'm not sure I want to know. "He got out of prison last year after serving 4 years. He's trying to rebuild his reputation, but nobody will hire him. His medical license is permanently gone, and most hospitals won't even let him in the building. He writes angry blog posts about how the system failed him, how you lied and destroyed an innocent man's career." "Of course he does," I say dryly. Ashley nods. "But nobody reads them. Nobody cares. He's irrelevant now." She shifts her weight, looking uncomfortable. "I should probably go. I just wanted to say, you did the right thing. A lot of us wish we had your courage." She leaves and I sit there for a long time, thinking about courage and revenge and justice. I never set out to be courageous. I set out to survive. But maybe survival when you're trapped in an impossible situation is its own kind of courage. That night, I have the staircase dream. I haven't had it in months, but it comes back with vivid clarity. Standing at the top of the stairs, Marcus reaching for me, the knowledge that I'm about to fall and die. But this time, in the dream, I step aside. Marcus's momentum carries him forward, and he's the one who falls, tumbling down the stairs while I watch from above, safe and untouchable. I wake up feeling lighter than I have in years. 5 years after the trial, I'm the Associate Director of Student Services at Champlain College, respected and valued in my field. I present at conferences about supporting students in crisis, sharing strategies I've developed through years of practice. I write articles for higher education journals about identifying and helping students who are being coerced or abused. I never mention my own story directly in my professional work. It's too recognizable, and I value my privacy. But everything I know about coercive control, about documenting abuse, about strategic survival informs the way I help students navigate their own difficult situations. That fall, I meet someone. His name is David Chen. He teaches biology at a local high school, and he's kind in a way I'd forgotten people could be. We meet at a community book club, bond over a shared love of mystery novels, and start having coffee together after the meetings. He doesn't push, he doesn't demand, he doesn't use his affection as leverage or test my loyalty or expect me to compromise myself for his benefit. He's just nice. Genuinely, consistently, wonderfully nice. When I tell him about my past, the abbreviated version, the public record version, the story that was splashed across national news 5 years ago, he listens without judgment. "That must have been terrifying," he says simply, and says, "I'm glad you made it out." Not, "Why didn't you leave sooner?" Or "How could you have participated in fraud?" Or any of the judgmental questions I've fielded from countless others, just acknowledgement that it was hard and gladness that I survived. We date slowly, carefully. He meets Pepper, my cat. I meet his sister, who's funny and warm and accepts me immediately. We cook dinner together on weekends, argue about whether the Great British Baking Show is better than Nailed It, it obviously is, and build something that feels normal and safe and real. A year later, when he proposes, I say yes without hesitation. We get married at a small courthouse ceremony with a handful of friends and David's family. I wear a blue dress, not white. We honeymoon in Maine, eating lobster rolls and hiking in Acadia National Park. It's nothing like my first marriage, no grand church wedding, no society pages coverage, no feeling that I've been acquired as a status symbol by someone more successful than me. This is real. This is right. This is the life I fought for. 10 years after the trial, I'm 53 years old. David and I have a quiet, happy life in Burlington. I've been promoted to Director of Student Services. David is now head of the science department at his school. We have a house, a garden, 2 cats, we added a second one, a black cat named Shadow, and a collection of friends we love. One afternoon, I get a letter forwarded from my old address in the suburbs. The return address is unfamiliar, but the handwriting on the envelope looks vaguely familiar. I open it cautiously. It's from Vanessa. I almost throw it away without reading it, but curiosity wins out. I unfold the cheap notebook paper, the kind you buy at a drugstore, nothing like the expensive stationery she used to use, and read, "Elizabeth, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you probably hate me, but I've been in therapy for 3 years now, really working on myself, and my therapist suggested I write this letter. She said I don't have to send it, that it's just part of my process, but I think I need you to know this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I did to you, everything I said, every way I treated you like you were nothing. You were trying to be good to my dad, trying to be kind to me, even though I was awful, and I punished you for it because I was jealous and mean and incredibly immature. I see now how entitled I was, how I treated you like hired help instead of a person, how I participated in my dad's abuse of you without even thinking about it because I was so focused on what I wanted. I'm not making excuses. There's no excuse for what we did to you. I just want you to know that I understand now how wrong it was. I'm working in sales now, actually doing the work instead of coasting like I did in college. I'm decent at it when I try. I sponsor a student through a mentoring program, helping her with college applications, and I make absolutely sure she understands that grades matter, that there are no shortcuts, that integrity is more important than prestige. My dad got out of prison 6 years ago. We don't talk much. He's still bitter, still angry at everyone, especially you. He thinks you ruined his life. I used to agree with him, but I don't anymore. You didn't ruin our lives, Elizabeth. We did that ourselves. You just made sure we faced consequences for our actions. I know this letter doesn't fix anything. I know I destroyed any chance of a relationship with you. If I could go back and change things, I would, but I can't. So all I can do is say I'm sorry and hope that somehow, someday that means something. I hope you're happy. I hope you're safe. I hope you found a life that doesn't include people like my father and me. Vanessa. I read the letter 3 times, sitting at my kitchen table while David makes dinner in the background. He notices my expression and comes over, reading over my shoulder. "How do you feel?" he asks gently. "Weird," I admit. But not bad weird, just weird. "Are you going to write back?" "No, I don't think so." I fold the letter carefully. Her apology isn't something I need to accept or reject. It's her process, her journey toward becoming less terrible. But I don't owe her forgiveness or engagement. "That's fair," David says. "You get to decide what closure looks like for you." I put the letter in a drawer, a small acknowledgement that people can change, even the ones who hurt us most. But I don't respond to it. Vanessa is part of my past, and my past is something I've made peace with but don't need to revisit. 15 years after the trial, I'm at a professional conference in Boston, presenting a workshop on supporting students experiencing domestic violence or coercive control. The room is packed, maybe 75 people, all taking notes and asking thoughtful questions. After my presentation, a young woman approaches me. She's maybe 26, nervous, clutching a notebook to her chest. "Ms. Morrison," she says softly, I wanted to thank you for this workshop, and I wanted to tell you that I know who you are. I mean, I know about the trial, about what happened with your husband and stepdaughter." My stomach tightens automatically, the old fear response. Even after 15 years, there's still a moment of anxiety when someone recognizes me from the scandal. I researched you before the conference, thus, she continues quickly. Not to be creepy, but because I saw your name on the schedule and I remembered the case from one of my graduate school classes. We studied it as an example of coercive control in professional settings and the importance of systematic documentation. Oh, I say, not sure how to respond. The thing is, she takes a deep breath. My mom was in a situation like yours. My dad was controlling, abusive, using financial leverage to make her do things and she knew were wrong. She stayed for years because she didn't think she could leave, didn't think anyone would believe her, didn't think she had options. Tears are forming in her eyes now. And then your case was in the news. This was back when everything was happening, back when it was all over CNN and everywhere. My mom read about you, about how you documented everything, how you planned your escape, how you made sure the truth came out, and something clicked for her. She realized she could do it too. She could document, she could plan, she could get out. Did she? I ask softly. She did. She left him 2 years after your trial, got a restraining order, divorced him, rebuilt her whole life. She's safe now, she's happy, and it started because she read about you and realized escape was possible. The young woman is crying openly now. So, I just wanted to say thank you. You saved my mom's life. And you probably don't even know how many other women you saved by being brave enough to come forward. I'm crying too, right there in the conference center hallway, surrounded by other professionals heading to their next sessions. Thank you for telling me that, I manage. Thank you so much. She hugs me and walks away, and I stand there for a long moment, overwhelmed by the weight of what she said. I didn't just save myself, I saved other people too. By standing up, by documenting, by refusing to be crushed, I'd shown other women that escape was possible, that abusers could be held accountable, that victims could become survivors, and survivors could become something more, witnesses, advocates, examples. That night, I call David from my hotel room and tell him about the encounter. I'm not surprised, he says warmly. You're remarkable, Elizabeth. You always have been. I don't feel remarkable. I feel like someone who got lucky and made good choices with that luck. Maybe that's what remarkable is, he suggests. Making good choices when the situation is terrible. Surviving when survival isn't guaranteed. Helping others after you've helped yourself. I sleep well that night, better than I have in months, dreaming not of staircases or falling, but of flying, untethered and free. 20 years after the trial, David and I are planning our retirement. We're both in our early 60s now, ready to slow down and enjoy the life we've built. We're looking at a small house on the coast of Maine. Nothing fancy, just a place where we can watch the ocean and read books and live quietly. I'm cleaning out my office at Champlain, preparing for retirement, when I find an old flash drive in the back of a drawer. It takes me a moment to remember what it is, and then recognition hits. It's the original backup of all my documentation from the fraud case, the encrypted files I created 20 years ago as insurance against Marcus. I hold it in my palm, this tiny piece of plastic that changed everything. I could throw it away now. The case is long closed, the evidence no longer needed. But instead, I put it in a box with other mementos, my college diploma, my wedding photo with David, thank you cards from students I've helped over the years, a framed article about the case from a domestic violence advocacy magazine. Someday, I'll donate these items to a resource center or a museum. Someday, they might help someone else understand their own situation, recognize the signs, find the courage to plan their escape. On my last day of work, my colleagues throw me a retirement party. There's cake and speeches and a photo slideshow of my 20 years at Champlain. I watch myself get younger as the photos scroll backward in time. The gray hair fading to brown, the laugh lines smoothing, the confidence and peace becoming more visible year by year. You've changed so much, one of my colleagues says, a woman I've worked with for 15 years. When you first started here, you seemed so cautious, like you were waiting for something bad to happen. Now you just seem free. I am free, I tell her. It took a long time to get here, but I am. That night, David and I sit on our porch with wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. We don't talk much, We've been together long enough that silence is comfortable, even preferred sometimes. Do you ever think about them? David asks eventually, nodding toward the sunset as if Marcus and Vanessa might be out there somewhere. About how different your life would be if things had gone the other way. Sometimes, I admit, but not often. They're not real to me anymore. They're just characters in a story I used to live. Good, he says simply. They don't deserve space in your head. He's right, they don't. Not anymore. Not ever again. I'm 70 years old when I get the call that Marcus has died. Heart attack, sudden, at age 75. Vanessa is the one who calls to tell me. We haven't spoken in decades, but apparently she felt I should know. There's no funeral, she says, her voice neutral, emotionless. He didn't want one. But I thought you'd want to know he's gone. Thank you for telling me, I say, and mean it. After I hang up, David asks if I'm okay. I'm fine, I say honestly. It's strange, but I'm fine. I don't go to any memorial service. I don't send flowers or condolences. I just acknowledge that a chapter of my life, a chapter that technically ended 25 years ago but somehow still existed in the background, is now truly, finally closed. That night, I dream about the staircase one last time. But this time, when I reach the top and Marcus reaches for me, I simply step aside and watch him fall past me into darkness. And then I turn around and walk away, back into light and safety and the life I built without him. I wake up feeling lighter than I have in years, David snoring softly beside me, sunlight streaming through our bedroom window, and the knowledge that I'm free in every possible way. I'm 78 years old when I sit down to write this all out, wanting to document it before my memory fades any further. Some details are already fuzzy, exact conversations, specific dates, the names of minor players in the drama. But the important parts I remember with crystal clarity: the feeling of being trapped, the decision to fight back, the careful documentation that saved my life. David passed away last year, peacefully in his sleep, and I miss him every single day. But I'm not lost without him. I have friends, community, purpose. I volunteer at a domestic violence shelter, talking to women who remind me of who I used to be, showing them that escape is possible and life continues after trauma. Sometimes, when I'm helping a new resident at the shelter fill out job applications or teaching a workshop on financial independence after leaving an abuser, I think about my first life. The timeline where I died at the bottom of those stairs. I think about how close I came to never having any of this. The career I built, the marriage to David, the peace I found, the women I've helped. I think about that moment of grace, that inexplicable second chance, and what I did with it. I don't know why I got to wake up 6 months in the past with memories of my death intact. I don't know if it was magic, a hallucination in my dying moments, a quantum anomaly, or something else entirely. But I know what I did with it. I saved myself. I documented everything. I built the trap and they walked right into it. And in saving myself, I showed other women that survival was possible. That's enough. That's everything. One evening, I'm sitting in my small house. I stayed in Burlington after David died. Couldn't bear to move to Maine without him, with my cat. I'm on my 4th cat now, an orange tabby named Sunshine, when I get an email from Champlain College. They're creating an endowment in my name, the Elizabeth Morrison Endowment for Student Safety and Wellness, to provide resources for students experiencing domestic violence or coercive control. Your work has impacted countless students over the years, the email reads. Your dedication to helping those in crisis, your compassion for survivors, and your commitment to ensuring that no one faces abuse alone has been an inspiration to our entire community. This endowment will ensure that your legacy continues long after your retirement. I cry reading it. Grateful tears for a recognition I never expected and don't entirely feel I deserve. But David always said I was too hard on myself, that I didn't give myself enough credit for what I'd survived and accomplished. Maybe he was right. Maybe surviving Marcus, escaping alive, helping others do the same, maybe that is worth celebrating. I framed the email and put it on my wall, next to my retirement photo and the article about the trial, and a drawing one of the shelter residents made for me last Christmas. These are the markers of my second life, the proof that I made it out and built something worth having. I'm 82 years old, sitting in my house by the lake, drinking tea and watching the water, when I think about parallel universes one last time. In one universe, I'm still dead at the bottom of those stairs, forgotten except as a cautionary tale. In another, maybe I never got my second chance, and I'm an old woman in prison, having served my full sentence for fraud while Marcus and Vanessa lived their perfect lives. But in this universe, the real one, the one that matters, I'm alive, I'm free. I built a life worth living after escaping one that nearly killed me. Marcus's ashes are scattered somewhere I'll never visit. Vanessa is 62 now, living quietly in Ohio, never having achieved the success her father wanted for her, but having, according to that letter she sent years ago, found some measure of peace and self-awareness. And I'm here, 82 years old, surrounded by proof that victims can become survivors and survivors can become something more, advocates, teachers, examples of what's possible when you refuse to give up. I got my second chance, that impossible gift of waking up 6 months in the past with knowledge of the future. And I didn't waste it. Not for one single moment did I waste it. The end.